What's up, everybody? I'm Katie.
And I'm Morgan.
And this is For Your Misinformation, a podcast dedicated to empowering women to be more politically engaged so we can act in our own best interests.
Let us break down the problem and tell you what we're doing and what you can do to help solve it.
Hi, Morgan.
Hi, Katie.
Are you ready to talk about the great state of Michigan?
Yes, let's talk about Michigan. I actually really like Michigan,
Me
so
too.
I'm excited about this.
My family used to have a cottage there for a little bit on Diamond Lake, and we loved it. Some of my family still does, so I have like a very soft spot in my heart for Michigan. Plus, it's in the Midwest. It's shaped like a mitten. Like,
so
you
cute.
can't get any better than that. They've got a weird upper peninsula for reasons I can't explain.
Yeah, and like the Upper Peninsula, like the UP is like a whole separate country.
Like
it really is. It's amazing. And also they have like the Detroit Tigers, which is somehow just like a very lovable baseball team to me. And I don't know why. I'm a Cubs fan, but
I could not have
my
told
American
you.
League team.
I could not have told you that about the Detroit Tigers. If you like put a gun to my head and you were like, "What's the baseball team from Michigan?" I would have been like, "Pull the trigger." I don't know.
Oh, but now you do.
Yeah, now I know. Now
could save your life someday.
Yep. Can't. Thank you so much.
All right, let's get to it.
But Michigan's exciting because it's like one of the states that actually gets to decide who the president gets to be.
Yeah.
And they have this super important, super competitive state race this year with Gary Peters. There's a lot of issues in Michigan, but like I feel less frustrated about it than I did when I was researching Georgia. Like it's clearly moving in a blue direction. I mean, when Gretchen Whitmer got elected, they broke that red trifecta. So now they have a Democratic governor, and they still do have Republican-held legislatures in their state, but we're working on it. Like stuff's moving in a good direction.
Yeah, and like Michigan, so like we always talk about like key battleground states and swing states, and like basically like because of the winner take all approach of the electoral college that we talked about in an episode way back, political candidates usually only campaign aggressively in like competitive states. Michigan is like a super state in 2020 though, because we're trying to flip the Michigan House to turn that blue in addition to the presidential election, the Senate race. Like there's a lot going on there right now. And in terms of the political, politics there are just very interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's Midwest, but it's relatively still diverse. And you've got a city like Detroit in it. You have a really strong union presence and like blue collar presence in the state. And it was consistently blue presidentially until Hillary notably didn't campaign in Michigan the way she definitely should have.
And then she
won it last year.
She lost by 10,000 votes.
Yeah.
Which is nothing. 10,000 votes is nothing. Nothing.
And we heard a lot about how much Hillary did not do in Michigan when we went to the live show of Love It or Leave It at the end of January, right before the Iowa caucus, because Michael Moore went on and spent like 20 minutes talking about it.
That was so uncomfortable.
It was so
Michael Moore is so weird. Like his heart's in the right place, but he seems to have kind of gone off the deep end.
Yeah, he's like that uncle that like you love because you know he has the best intentions, but you're also like, I'm not going to claim you as a relative on my Facebook profile.
There was like a significant amount of time while Michael Moore was talking that like we were kind of looking at each other like, is he going to leave yet? Like, I think I'm ready for him to be done talking. But
his heart's like, in the right place. He should be. Like, bring back Liz Lenz.
Yeah, she was hilarious. So Michigan residents have been significantly more Democratic than Republican for years, but there is really, really heavy gerrymandering there, which we'll talk about a little bit later. It's one of only 2 states with an incumbent Democrat where Trump won the state in 2016. So Trump won Michigan in 2016, and Gary Peters is up, and then Trump won Alabama in 2016, and Doug Jones is up. I don't feel like great about Doug Jones' seat. I don't even think we're gonna do an episode about Alabama. So we pick states to highlight for a lot of different reasons. Michigan has a lot of the reasons, but Alabama, Doug Jones was competing against Roy Moore. Roy Moore is a child predator, and they barely elected Doug Jones. I don't know anything. We're talking about Michigan. We don't need to talk about Alabama yet. We got stuff.
If we do talk about Alabama, it's going to be because Birmingham specifically. Also, shout out to my friend Jen who lives there.
Hi, Jen.
And is wonderful. We love you, Jen.
I've heard. So it's a critical state. It's a perennial battleground. Like Morgan said, it went to Obama in 2008 and 2012, and then Trump barely eked out a win by a quarter of a percentage point, which ends up being 10,000 votes, which is nothing. But afterwards, there was some signs of life in Michigan. They voted for Gretchen Whitmer in 2018, became the Democratic governor there. So they are no longer a red trifecta. I think it's been pretty hard for Gretchen Whitmer governing in Michigan because the Republican state legislature doesn't really want to work with her.
Yeah, she is she's not just fighting an uphill battle or trying to break a glass ceiling. She's trying to punch her way out of a stone room.
Yeah.
She's up against a lot.
So it would do an incredible amount of good to flip the Republican House blue. I don't think any of Michigan's Senate is up for election this year, but so we're not either. There's no chance of really flipping it blue, or there's just not a Senate race for Michigan's House or Michigan State Senate.
Nothing competitive.
But either way, we're not really talking about this Michigan Senate. We're talking about the Michigan House. But there are several competitive congressional races in Michigan's House that we will talk about a little bit later. And one incumbent Democrat who won by 200 points last time that we are pretty heavily supporting, and we'll talk about that later. Her name is Lori Pahutsky, and we are big fans of hers.
Yeah.
So the big goals in Michigan are to win the state's 16 electoral college votes. So that would go to the Democratic president instead of the Republican president or presidential nominee. Protect Gary Peters' Senate seat, and then flip control of the Republican-led Michigan State House. So Democrats need 4 seats in the House, the Michigan State House, and momentum is on their side. In 2018, Democrats broke a Republican supermajority in the Senate. They gained 5 seats in the House, and like I said, they broke a Republican trifecta by electing Governor Gretchen Whitmer. So let's use this energy in 2020. And yeah, like I said, Gretchen Whitmer, I'm sure, would be very appreciative to have a Democratic body to work with instead of 2 Republican bodies. So, yeah, they basically refused to work with her so that she can't really govern effectively. I think the end goal is probably to get her voted out in 2022. But whatever, they're at least stuck with her for 2 more years because she is not up for election.
Yeah, and what she got elected on was healthcare and expanding Medicaid, which a lot of people in Michigan need, as well as women's healthcare. Not specifically anything like Medicare for all, but also a very high need. And then infrastructure, which if you've ever driven through, yes, if you've ever driven through Michigan, their roads are terrible. Their roads are the worst. Her campaign slogan was let's fix the damn roads.
Yeah.
It's really bad. Michigan's seasons are winter and construction because they're always working on the roads, but the roads are still terrible.
Yeah.
But it makes it very hard for her to get those things done, which also includes funding schools and public education and water. Very key important things that everybody uses and needs. She can't get those things done with the Republican House.
Yeah.
Which means that everyone in Michigan suffers. And it also means that like it's just kind of like one example of partisanship actually halting progress for everyone, and we shouldn't accept that.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of that, I wasn't even planning to talk about this, but I did see an email from earlier explaining, I'm on a ton of newsletters, explaining which states were reopening this week-ish. And just one after another, it was like, oh, well, Arizona, that's a Republican trifecta. So I feel bad for states that have Republican trifectas because they have essentially like no chamber that's acting in the citizens' best interest.
Yeah, if you as a citizen have been wondering if your lawmakers actually care about the people, look and see if they are trying to reopen against the better judgment of the science.
Yeah.
That will tell you everything you need to know. I mean, right here in Iowa right now, suddenly like patriotism and citizenship apparently means sacrificing our parents and our grandparents. And it's not okay. Like, we do not support it.
Right. Nobody should.
Yeah.
So one of the main issues in Michigan is gerrymandering. Luckily, well, not luckily, I'm sure a lot of hard work went into it by activists in the state, but in 2018, Michigan voters approved 2 ballot measures that put a nonpartisan redistricting commission in charge of voting maps, which would effectively end gerrymandering. Of course, Michigan Republicans filed a lawsuit against the commission, which is just an explicit move to overrule the will of voters, which I know we talk about all the time, but it's just a pattern again, is that like without a doubt, having an independent redistricting committee would make for better and fairer districting. And the Republicans don't want it because it would make it fairer and it would ruin their majority. They wouldn't have a chance at holding the majority because nobody likes them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we have talked about gerrymandering a little bit before. It's bad. We cannot have it. And we need Democrats to win at least 4 of the 7 House districts in order to prevent it from
exactly. Yep. That's the way to fight back, is flipping the Michigan State House.
Yep. Another thing that we really need to get a grip on in Michigan and really need the State House to flip for is clean and safe drinking water. We have all heard about the Flint water crisis.
Too bad there's actually even more.
Yeah, still a water crisis in Flint, but also it's a lot more than just Flint. There are like carcinogens, cancer-causing chemicals contaminating the water that, if you live in Michigan, did you know about? We know Republicans are not going to take issues pertaining to this seriously because they, for one, don't care about public health.
Right.
And 2, don't care about any sort of like climate measures. So anything related to water, they don't care about. And, this is a serious issue and it needs to be taken seriously. So, make sure that you are, keeping aware of that, because it is actually lives at stake.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like not us being over dramatic. That's us being educated public health people who are like, if people know about this, like, or knew about this, they wouldn't be okay with it. But then also, yes, they would, because clearly the Republican majority in the Michigan State House right now is okay with it.
Yeah, exactly. My favorite class that I ever took was called Toxic Threats to Reproductive Health and Child Development. And a ton of it was about the stuff in water. In central Illinois, a lot of it was about pesticides in the water and how like pregnant women aren't supposed to drink the water in spring because there's too much atrazine in that, which is a pesticide that fucks with growing babies. But yeah, so there's a lot of this stuff going on in Michigan right now. Whenever I hear stories like this, I think it's important to like take a 10,000 foot view or 30,000 foot view or whatever that expression is, and look at it. And it really is basically Democrats taking the side of the health and safety of their constituents and Republicans saying, but if these regulations, so Democrats want to impose regulations on the people that are creating the pollution, and Republicans consistently call that big government, and they aren't interested in that because then those companies aren't as productive because they have to pay to mitigate the damage that they're causing when they're polluting the water or whatever, or they have to not do it. So yeah, it's just they try to put the onus on us and say like
personal responsibility.
Exactly. So like we should be looking at the ingredients in our waterproof mascara to make sure no ingredients with the word like fluoro whatever are in there so that they're not like non-stick. But yeah, that's what Republicans are talking about when they're talking about they want less government regulation. They're basically just saying they want to be able to pollute freely.
Yeah.
It's like it's gaslighting.
Yeah, it is. They don't want to regulate the people that are putting these carcinogens into the water.
It's making them a profit.
They want you to regulate yourself. You should be able to afford to buy bottled water to drink or get a filter or whatever. And which is probably what they're doing because they know about the severity of the problem. And then the people it hurts are the ones who don't have access to purchase those things or don't know about the problem, are not capable of understanding the problem. Like the people that it hurts are the people at the bottom of the food chain that they have constructed.
Always. Every time.
And this, like, that is the American way.
Yeah.
Like it is. And it's like, no, we got to have a new American way because this isn't good.
Yeah. This isn't going to cut it. And then one of the other major problems in Michigan is education. Michigan students have consistently suffered from chronic underfunding. For the past 4 years in a row, third graders in Michigan were considered poor readers based on standardized tests. And the state did add a 2.4% increase in the education budget. But once you take inflation into account, the budget didn't actually increase at all.
They are actually the worst state for funding public education.
Yes, 50 out of 50. Congrats. Like
seriously, Michigan.
I wouldn't have guessed that, but it's true.
No, I wouldn't have either. Like, you are kicked out of the Midwest unless you fix this, because in the Midwest, we are very proud of the way we fund public education.
Yeah.
So
the way to fix it is to flip the Michigan House. That would give Democrats more power to keep increasing funding for education in Michigan because that is consistently a Democratic priority. And then maybe by 2022, we can flip the Senate. I mean, who knows? But
let's do it. And then let's dismantle everything Betsy DeVos stands for.
Oh my God.
Let's do it, Michigan.
Yes.
And then another one I wanted to talk about too is protecting unions and protecting workers.
Oh yeah.
Michigan's a huge union state. And like, that is wonderful. Like I come from a proud union family. So I would like literally go French Revolution style in order to protect unions. I mean, like, and I am not like being hyperbolic right now. I straight up would. Like we are a proud union family. And yeah, the longer that the Michigan House is held by Republicans, the more in danger workers are and the unions are. We've already seen a lot of dismantling there. And like changing the Michigan House to blue, keeping a Democrat as governor of your state in Michigan is how you protect the unions and the workers.
Right. And the unions are the people that are protecting the workers from being exploited, like Amazon gets to exploit their workers. And just recently fired some workers for retaliating or protesting or whatever, which is absurd. I'm sure Jeff Bezos will probably be an asshole of the week at some point, but he's just one example of how when people accumulate that much wealth, they're doing it at the expense of the workers that they're exploiting, and unions keep those companies from being able to exploit those workers. And that's why big companies and Republicans usually are anti-union, because it benefits the workers, which ends up hurting them, but they're not the ones that need the protection.
Yeah, they're not. And like this is mental math type thing, but like think about it. Billionaires, nobody earns $1 billion. The billionaires are the ones who are anti-union. Nobody earns that kind of money. If you are making $100 an hour, which like who makes $100 an hour? But if you're making $100 an hour, working like 50 hours a week, you would still have to work for like 800 years in order to accumulate $1 billion.
Yeah.
I mean, that math might be wrong. It's probably not that
You
inaccurate,
get it.
but like $1 billion is way more money than anybody actually earns.
Yeah. Not that I ever liked listening to Mike Bloomberg talk, but during that debate when somebody asked him like if billionaires should exist or if he should be a billionaire, and he was like, yeah, I work really hard. And it's like, fuck you, man. Like, you don't. I mean, I'm sure he does, but like there are people who work just as hard as him and are barely paycheck to paycheck. Like he did not earn that.
Exactly. You know who else works really hard? Like
the people at the grocery
average
stores.
Ethical journalist.
Yeah.
A grocery store cashier.
Yeah.
Your union plumbers and pipe fitters. Teachers, as I'm sure all of the parents currently homeschooling have realized, teachers should be billionaires.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like there's really, really important things at stake in Michigan.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we can't vote in Michigan, but we want to tell all of you in Michigan to tell your friends also in Michigan to like vote like crazy.
We have a lot of hope for your state.
Yeah, to get this, because we do. We have a lot of hope for Michigan. We're both big fans.
Yeah.
Little Mitten. Some people that I care about a lot actually live in Michigan. So we gotta look out for them.
Yeah, for sure.
And everybody else who I don't know, because I care about them a lot too, because I'm an empath. But you know,
because we're people. I actually just finished watching the Larry Nassar documentary. He's from Michigan.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy. He's in jail forever though, which is nice.
Fuck that guy so much. Like so much. Straight to the ninth circle of hell. Do not pass go. Do not have $200. Like
it's a perfect example of like a lot of gaslighting and just taking advantage of people who don't know about boundaries. It's fucked up. Fucked up. Oh, well, I'll
also a future episode we should totally talk about is like athletics and all of the like bullshit in athletics.
So let's talk about some of the characters in Michigan. So let's start with the bad guys. I'm lumping Justin Amash in with the bad guys. Do you want to talk about him at all?
Okay, let's briefly talk about Justin Amash. Okay. So Justin Amash was a Republican until recently. Now, as a Republican, he still, went against the grain sometimes. Yeah. But also was very complicit in other Republican groups that were just gross. Left the Republican Party and is now officially / also flirting with the idea of running as the presidential candidate as a libertarian. Yep. He's an official libertarian now. So this could benefit the Republicans in the congressional district where initially he was going to be campaigning because now he won't be. So this could benefit the Republicans who might have split their vote between the Republican candidate and him there. So that's not great. Yeah. And then also just like many libertarians.
Have you ever dated a libertarian?
Yes.
I met one on a dating site and like we really butted heads. And eventually I was like, dude, let's not even bother.
Yeah. And I have dated a libertarian and like, the thing was like some of his ideas are good on paper.
Right.
Some of them are good in practice. And then some of them are literally just trash completely. But what I found to be very common with all of them is that they're like the kind of people who pride themselves in being assholes. Like they're like, I'm an asshole, but I'm okay with it.
I'm a contrarian.
Which like, that's so boring. Yeah. Get a better personality trait. Stop it. Asshole's not a personality trait that you should be proud of. Like, seriously.
There might have been a time that I was like intrigued by that, but it is far in the past. I don't have time for it.
Exactly. I do not have time for that. All of you women listening deserve better than that. So like some of the ways in which he like sucks, but also did a few good things is that Amash has been quoted saying all abortion should be illegal, which like immediately to the trash with anybody who says that.
How can he call himself a libertarian?
Yeah, well, because I found quotes that also conflicted with that and was like, well, in some cases, and like he voted against a bill that would like charge or possibly end up arresting doctors for performing abortions. So he voted against that, but then also in another breath somewhere was quoted as saying that abortion should be illegal. So I don't even know if he knows how he feels about this issue. He did oppose what was actually a very bad alternative budget balance resolution in Michigan. So like, good for you. Supported impeachment of Donald Trump. Good for you. He's anti-gerrymandering. Good for you. But then also he opposed federal aid to Flint, Michigan during the initial water crisis that made the news. Like he opposed that because, well, that's a state's issue. He's all about like states' not rights. Having big government. And so states' rights are really important. And it's like, okay, but also like this is a crisis. That's why we have a federal government. And stop it. Like most of the time, those whole like states' rights libertarian movements are based in nothing but racism.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's not allowed. No matter what we agree or disagree with, like politically with his views, though, he should not run for president of the United States right now. He should not. Like some people are like, oh, but that could pull some of the Republican votes from Trump. But no, because Trump is a cult leader.
Yeah.
And it is very hard to leave a cult. People are not going to do that. So they're just going to vote for him instead of Biden. And that's like the absolute thing that we should not have happen.
Right.
I mean, I say Biden with the assumption that he will be the nominee.
Yeah.
There could still be hope that it won't, but I mean, let's be honest.
It's like trying to stop a moving train at this point.
Yeah. And I'm generally anti-bullying, but he is an adult. So if anybody wants to, Katie has started a campaign to just bully
gently bully. All my I've just been tweeting it. Anytime a tweet of his shows up in my feed, I just write underneath it, "Go away." So I'm not trying to like make him suicidal or anything. I just want him to know he's not needed here. He's not wanted here. Go. Yeah. You're not helping. I get that he probably thinks he's helping. He's not helping. Please go away.
Nope. He is not helping. So yeah, gently, not personally,
bully
bully him.
He just
like reminders that he should go away.
Yeah, like don't forget, a bunch of people think this is a stupid idea and a waste of time. And oh my God, if he runs and we get Trump for 4 more years, I'm gonna put all my displaced anger into Justin Amash.
Right, like a few people were kind of mad at like Gary Johnson in 2016, which is rightful, but also like he didn't turn the tide of the election necessarily. This is a whole different level of just like no.
Yeah.
Just let's not.
Okay, so I will mention, we're talking about bad guys right now. Gary Peters is the current senator from Michigan. He is one of like the least well-known senators in all of Congress. I'd never heard of him, and I think about politics constantly. After doing some research, I kind of decided that Gary Peters is just like, he reminds me of Jerry from Parks and Rec, and like there's really like nothing wrong with him, but people like are kind of mean to, I don't know, they're not like, I'm sure people aren't mean to Gary Peters, but like I think people underestimate him. Like he's a fine he's a fine Democratic politician.
He's just like painfully mediocre, maybe.
Yes, he's like human. Boring. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
I dated one of those kinds too.
Yeah.
Once. It was like,
my policy while I was on the dating sites was, if we go on a date and like I don't have a great time, but you weren't creepy towards me, you earn a second date.
Yeah.
So like he's the kind of guy that I feel like would probably fall under that. And like literally never did any of those guys get a third date. It was always so boring. And like eventually I got rid of that policy because I was like, I should probably hold my standards higher than like just didn't creep me the fuck out.
You are such a good person, but like I have better things to do.
Exactly. Yeah. This is like a waste of time. Okay. Yeah. So I feel like he would probably be that. So Gary Peters is running against John James. So we got a lot of men with 2 first names. John James is the Republican nominee for running against Gary Peters for Senate. He did run in 2018, and he lost, but he lost by a lot closer of a margin than he thought he was going to lose by. So he was running against Debbie Stabenow, who's Michigan's other senator, and he lost by 7 percentage points, but he was predicted to lose by like 14 percentage points.
And
so
right now he's polling very close.
Yeah,
to Gary Peters.
I'm kind of nervous about it because basically Gary Peters is boring. He's not charismatic, whatever. John James is like the opposite of that. He is incredibly charismatic. He's a 38-year-old Republican. He's a veteran. His dad was like a huge supply chain business owner. So he has a lot of privilege. He's kind of like your typical Republican nominee, but he's Black. So that is a little bit different.
Yeah, when I first saw him, like a picture of him, I was like, oh my God, he's very attractive. And I was like, it should not be allowed to be attractive and be a Republican. That's not even fair.
Yeah. I'm worried that like his charisma and whatever is going to give him a leg up. But he is made almost entirely in like the mold of Trump. He was being considered for a position in the Trump administration, but he got passed over twice. But Trump has called him a rising star in the Republican Party. He's
Which, if Trump is calling someone a rising star or saying anything good about them, run away.
Yes.
Run away.
Yes. He's pro-life. He's pro-Second Amendment. He's pro-business. He tweeted in 2018 that he would back President Trump 2,000%. And he eventually deleted that tweet and hundreds of other social media posts after the 2018 election. But he's endorsed by the NRA. He's anti-gay marriage, pro-border wall. Basically, he's like incredibly privileged, but he probably doesn't realize it, or he probably doesn't acknowledge it. Like, I feel like at least once in his life, he's probably said that like racism isn't real because he's successful or something. But
yeah, those kinds of people are so rare, but they absolutely exist.
Yeah. You can have worked hard and acknowledge that some of the obstacles that weren't in your way because of privilege, do you know? So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And honestly, the last bad guy I'm going to talk about is the protesters in Michigan, because I think we should call them what they are, which is terrorists. Like, they're an armed militia showing up at the state capitol to try and intimidate people. Like, what else would we call them? If they were anything but white, we would call them terrorists. So I think we should call them terrorists.
We would have them arrested if they were not white and were carrying guns around the street like that.
Yep.
Also, if like they're so anxious to get out of their houses, there are lots of places they could go volunteer right now. If they're really going that stir crazy, there are a lot of places they could volunteer. There are even some places hiring because a lot of their workforce has ended up, hospitalized or sick. So, they could always do that too. Also, let's talk a little bit about them and their fight against Gretchen Whitmer, who we love. So Gretchen Whitmer's stay-at-home orders. Some of this I am aware of because I have the ability to Google things. Unlike apparently all of the screaming Karens and Kevins in Lansing, but also people that I care about and know very well who live in Michigan, whose names I'm just not going to mention right now because I haven't asked them if that's okay, have spoken about this. So her, apparently anti-constitutional stay-at-home orders, most people, for one, support them.
Good.
And two, the claims that she's not allowing people to shop at stores or buy seeds to plant their gardens are not true. They can still buy those things, just not at certain places. Partly because when initially, Walmarts were completely open in every section, including the garden section, people were just going in and browsing because they were bored. This is why we can't have nice things. And so, because people were doing that, they had to just close off those areas of the stores. people are still allowed to order them online, have picked them up, or shop specifically at farm stores for them, just not Walmart. And that threw people into such a tizzy. They started this whole thing, all of these protests that started in Michigan, largely by like conspiracy theorists like Alex Jones type, also possibly funded by the DeVos family.
Yep.
So if anybody tells you that Whitmer is like trying to be Hitler or something, shut that down, because it's not true. Yeah. People can still get their seeds and whatever they else want. Like, it's just inconvenient.
And like, it's designed to be inconvenient to keep you safe.
You know what else is inconvenient? Being dead from COVID-19.
Yeah, so I hear. So let's talk about the good guys. Gretchen Whitmer, the governor, is certainly what I would consider a good guy. Do you want to talk about her a little bit?
Yeah, I'll just briefly talk about her. So Gretchen Whitmer was elected to the state house in Michigan in 2000 and was a state senator from 2006 until 2015. And then term limits were up. She was the first female Democratic leader of the Senate there. So that's pretty cool. Also, sometimes every time I hear that, like, first female leader of anything these days, I'm like, what are you talking about? How is all of this stuff happening while I am an adult?
Right.
This should have happened 50 years ago. Anyway, one of the things she's really known for is being a fucking strong ass lady. So in 2013, she gave a floor speech during an abortion debate because she is passionately pro-choice and pro-woman, which is different than being just pro-choice. And she has tackled domestic violence and sexual assault as county prosecutor.
She's a sexual assault survivor.
Yeah, because she is a survivor. And not saying that people who are not survivors don't get it and don't take this issue seriously, because we certainly know that's not true. But also, like, the fact that she is so passionate and willing not only to share her story, but to advocate on others using that platform is really powerful, like, because that's really freaking hard. And I have so much respect for her and her ability to do that. Kind of as I mentioned earlier, the biggest things that she wants to accomplish as governor are expanding Medicaid to make sure that Michigan citizens can get affordable health care, as well as women's health care, which includes abortion, and then infrastructure, which includes public education, just as we also have mentioned, in dire need of a revamp in Michigan. Water safety and water quality in the entire state, and fixing the roads, which is very necessary. She's very strong. She also supports a whole lot of other really important things to us and to hopefully everyone who cares about people, including lower prescription drug costs and protecting people with pre-existing conditions so that they cannot be charged exorbitant fees for health insurance or medical care or be kicked off of their insurance because of that. And then she also supports universal pre-K. So that, all of the research has shown, is huge. Access to preschool is very important, but it has to be universal because otherwise it's just rooted in institutional racism. And also lower the cost of childcare, which is how you show that you care about families. A governor who works to accomplish universal pre-K and lowering the cost of childcare is someone who cares about families, is someone who cares about children, and is someone who cares about the future of their people and their state. So
once you invest in women like that, they invest back in those communities like tenfold.
Yep. When you invest in women, when you invest in families, the return on that investment you get is priceless. And we stand anybody who supports those things. Pretty much the only thing that is like controversial that she supports is a gas tax on fuel. which yes, fuel is very expensive in Michigan, having been there a lot of times and purchased the gas. But like also because the Michigan roads are so bad and need to be fixed, that's where that money is coming from.
Right.
And, you know, and yeah, like, of course that sucks to pay more at the pump for fuel tax for that. But like, I also get her point of like, they have to get that money from somewhere to fund the construction that will help. And actual structural infrastructure change also costs a lot. So,
yeah.
Like in Michigan.
Well, and if you're buying gas, you're one of the people that's fucking up the roads. So
yeah, exactly. Well, and one of the big problems is because of the climate there, because of the winters, because of the lakes and everything. Yeah, winter in Michigan is hardcore.
Yeah.
And so they have to use a lot on the roads to help prevent accidents and make them drivable, which is a lot of salt, especially on like I'm directionally challenged, but especially on the eastern side of the state, like closer to like Detroit and stuff. They're like built on salt mines. So salt is very cheap. It's very cheap for them to put like an exorbitant amount of salt on the roads. Michiganders, you already know this, but up towards the western side of the state, they're more likely to use sand instead of salt, or a combination of both, or at least less salt because it's like not quite as accessible, and the roads are not quite so bad there.
Interesting.
But also like the super populated side of the state is that eastern side of the state.
Yeah.
Largely like around Detroit, right? So, and that's where the roads are the worst.
Yeah. That's also where most of the like state house districts that we're fighting for are. They are like kind of all over, but a lot of them are near Detroit.
Yeah. So that's kind of an interesting thing to think about too, is like a gas tax to fix the roads and actually change the infrastructure in a sustainable way is expensive. But in the long term, again, it's that return on investment.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot to it. She's extremely smart. She's very accomplished. She's very strong. And anybody who thinks that like Republicans are the family values party is very mistaken. All you have to do is look at the resume of somebody like Gretchen Whitmer and see the things that she supports are the things that make families stronger. And that's what makes the states stronger and everyone stronger. Like that's what helps build a better America. And the one that, I mean, neither of us have kids, but it's the one that our either future children or like current nieces and nephews deserve to grow up in. And yeah, it makes a really big difference in each and every state when things happen. So
yeah. And Joe Biden's looking at her potentially as a VP pick.
Yes. And with her being such a powerful advocate for women and somebody who's tackled domestic violence and sexual assault, that puts her high up on his short list of potential candidates, right? That she can maybe kind of help people forgive Joe Biden for the allegations and for his, documented history of just generally being creepy,
right?
A little bit too. Like, at least we'll know that he's got somebody there who is not afraid to check him.
Like a moderating force.
Yep, exactly. Because she's definitely not the kind of lady or the kind of survivor who's gonna just like accept things and be like, oh, well, it's fine. It's a different time. She's gonna check him if he's being weird or overly defensive on things. So yeah, that does actually make her case a little bit stronger too. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Looking forward to when we get to talk about who the pick is.
For sure.
On a future episode.
Yeah. So she has, as the U.S. senators from Michigan, there's Debbie Stabenow, who I feel bad. She's also like a very good advocate for women. Do you know what she looks like? Like, can you picture her when I say Debbie Stabenow?
I picture her, I think so. She's kind of like a typical old lady looking.
She's really old and she's very clearly trying to like hold on to a youthful appearance, which makes her, every time I see her, I'm always kind of like, ooh. And then I'm like, oh no, that's just like, I'm a bitch. Like, that's just how she, like, I don't know. She's
it's
great.
Shitty that that matters though. But
I know.
does.
Yeah.
Like I straight up remember the Bush-Gore election and hearing an old lady say she was going to vote for Gore just because he was more attractive, which like he also was, you know, in my opinion, the better candidate.
Yeah.
But like, I'm like, okay, attractiveness probably shouldn't matter in terms of who we decide to elect for office.
Yeah.
I mean, I really hope it doesn't anyway, because otherwise that makes me even more terrified to potentially run for office someday.
I know. Shut up. You're a regulation hottie. You don't have to worry about it.
Thank you.
So Debbie Stabenow is a really good advocate for women. And I mean, that's kind of it. She's been doing a really good job for a really long time. People like her. But like I said, when what's his fucking name? John James. It's such a dumb name. Yeah, John James ran against her. He got closer to her than like we would have hoped. And then there's Gary Peters, who is also a Democratic senator. He's the one that's up for election. We got to support Gary Peters. He's kind of boring, but like he's doing a good job, and we need him
in like a mediocre but still well accomplished way.
Yeah, like he likes science, way. You know.
And not like worse. Mediocre in a Justin Amash way.
Right.
Or boring in a Justin Amash way, which is just like my personality trait is asshole.
Right. So he's actually up for election, and we got to protect that seat. We always talk about how we need 4 Democratic seats to flip the Senate and get Mitch McConnell kicked out of his job as majority leader. But that also means that we have to hold all of the Democratic Senate seats that we have, and Gary Peters is one of the kind of riskier ones, especially since John James. One. Yeah, especially since John James is so high energy and charismatic and blah. So yeah. So there's that. So we got to protect Gary Peters. And then the person that I'm most excited to talk about is State Rep Lori Pahutsky. She is currently in her first term representing Michigan's 19th House District, which encompasses the majority of the city of Livonia. She is a longtime activist. She has been a volunteer. She spent time at a crisis hotline volunteer center. She's been a caregiver at Angela Hospice. She has a deep commitment to bringing a scientific perspective to government and advocating for environmental causes. She's a microbiologist by training. But she only won by 220 votes last time in 2018. So what did you say? How many seats do we need in Michigan to flip the House? 4 or 5?
4. 4 of the 7.
So again...
But that's assuming we hold on to all of them. Yeah.
Right. So this is a really, really important one to hold on to because she only won by 220 votes, which was like a quarter of a percentage point or something like that. So it's really, really... She's been doing a good job. We like her. We want to make sure that she keeps her seat. So either you can support Lori Pahutsky. She has been endorsed by Sister District, which is an organization that I really, really like. So far, she's the only person that they've endorsed in Michigan. We'll let you know if there's anybody else. But you could also try to find another close House race to support the 19th District, the 38th, 39th, 45th, 61st, 71st, and 104th are all like worth getting interested in. And Morgan and I are actually going to a Zoom trivia night to benefit her. It's a fundraiser to benefit Lori Pahutsky. It is on Saturday, May 9th, right?
Yeah.
It's
crazy that we're already into May, but
I know
we are.
It's Tuesday. It's on Saturday. Well, sorry, we're recording this on Tuesday. You're probably listening to this on like Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. But anyway, if you want to go to Zoom trivia with us, come to Zoom trivia with us. It's supposed to be fun. I talked to somebody who like isn't really like a trivia person, and even she said that she had fun. So there's a suggested donation of $10 to $25 per person who participates. But you can register. I'll put the link to the registration in the bio, but you could just Google Sister District Lori Pahutsky Zoom trivia or something. But yeah, I think that would be fun. It's certainly a really good cause, and I'm excited to support her.
I'm legitimately really excited for it. I think it's going to be really fun, and I feel like even though it's on Zoom and the energy, I feel like is still going to be really good, and that's the kind of thing we could all use these days.
Yeah. And they talked about in the sister district webinar that I watched where I learned about this, they talked about how important early money is in campaigns, especially local campaigns, because that might mean that they could hire somebody to do social media or outreach, an outreach manager or whatever. Whereas if you donate, so it kind of serves as like yeast is basically what they talked about, is that early money is like yeast because you can grow it. You can grow your organization. Later money just
I
ends
love
up.
it.
I know, I like it too. Like later money is important too, but it probably just ends up in being a little bit more funding for advertising or whatever. But early money actually like makes a difference in terms of their campaign. So I was pretty proud of myself. I texted that to my very wealthy aunt yesterday because we're always talking about politics. So I was like, maybe she'll be interested in donating. So I was just like, hey, if you want something to do, I just texted her the link to we'll also put the fundraising link in the episode description if you want to just donate to Lori. But I think if you guys, let's go to trivia. Why not? It sounds fun.
Yeah, I think it sounds really fun. And like if we grow our audience like big enough and stuff like that, maybe at some point we could have like a fundraiser trivia that we host.
I
am
would
very
love
good at
that.
writing trivia questions.
Oh, are you?
So I think that weird skill, but apparently. And like that would be super fun, and we could raise funds for
whatever. Yeah.
you, the listeners, want us to raise the funds for.
Yeah. So your job is to send our podcast to one friend this episode so that we can get enough listeners to start our own trivia or our own, like there's a campaign called Postcards to Michigan and Wisconsin that I just joined. And they keep track of how many postcards each team writes. I mean, we're competitive as fuck. I bet we would. I mean, I'm sure there's teams that are like bigger than us or whatever, but still, like, I think that would be really fun.
Right now talking about this. Yeah, that would be so fun though. Like, get on this with us, especially if you're a competitive person. Yeah. I think I'm like healthy level of competitive, but also I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about what dates people need to know in Michigan. So the August 4th is the state election primary date. October 20th is when you have to be registered for the general election by. You can register online. You can also register at the polls. But why would you do that if you could do it today? Just do it today. It's easy. Go to votesaveamerica.com. And you do need an ID to vote. And that brings us to the actions that we're taking this week. So what are we, let's talk about it. What are we doing this week to help Michigan move in a better direction? If you're in the state, I would suggest joining either your local Indivisible group or Swing Left group. Go to their website. They make it easy because they probably are already doing stuff that you can just jump in on and help with. Or like we said, just adopt one of those competitive races. We are big fans of Lori Podsky. But if you live outside of the state, you can do the kind of stuff Morgan and I are doing. We're participating in that trivia on May 9th at 6:30 Central Time. I'll put the registration in the link description. Those donations go to Lori Pohutsky, but if you don't want to do trivia and you just want to donate to Lori, you can. That link is in our description too. I wrote 20 more letters to Michigan voters this week with Vote Forward. Actually, on Monday with my Indivisible group, we set a goal of, as a group, writing 5,000 letters. I got a little thermometer to keep track.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So I think I'm up to like 150 or something by now. So
yay.
I hope that we get there. I'm going to keep on everybody. I'm going to try to get there.
You're like single-handedly 5% of the way.
Yes. So
you're killing it.
I think we can do it. We're going to do it. We got 6 months. And then you could also, if you're just interested in flipping the Senate in general, you could donate to Get Mitch or Die Trying. So I would just Google Get Mitch or Die Trying, and that fund comes up, and that's dedicated to like all winnable Democratic Senate races trying to flip the Senate. So that's always a good place to put your money. What else? Did I forget anything?
I think that's it. And then something really simple and really free to do is just to like share this podcast with somebody that you know who is a Michigan resident who should know about this stuff, or share just some of the information, even if you're like, well, my grandma doesn't listen to podcasts, but like I could send her the information for the candidate in my district. And inspire her to vote, or remind family members to register to vote, those kinds of things. Those are simple, free, very non-time-consuming actions.
Like people hearing stuff like that from people that you know and respect makes a way bigger difference than just getting, like I'm having a good time writing those letters, but like without a doubt, hearing it from a family member or a trusted friend or whatever is more effective in getting people to turn out than getting a letter in the mail.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Yeah. So, that's a really good one for sure. We already have a couple listeners in Michigan, but we could always use more. We're trying to turn the Midwest blue again. So, we could use your help.
We're big fans in the Midwest. Mm-hmm. So, let's make it happen.
Yeah. You're listening because you want to be a more responsible, active citizen, which is awesome. If you know anybody in your life that you think might also want to be a more responsible, active citizen that you want to send this episode to, that would be awesome, especially somebody in Michigan. But I think that is pretty much all I wanted to say today. What do you got? Anything else?
Yeah, I think that's all I had as well. Continue to stay safe and take care of yourself the best you can. If you or your loved ones are essential workers, we love you and support you and are sorry that people are not respecting some of the sacrifices that you're making right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, stay safe, and we will talk to you guys next week. We'll be back with another Swing State and a regular episode on Monday.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you guys so much for listening to For Your Misinformation. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast, and if you like it, give us a rating and a review. It helps us find more listeners, and the more of us there are, the better.
And make sure you're following along on Instagram and Twitter at FYMI Pod.
Shout out to Kyle Dibdahl for the intro and outro music, Hope Dye for the podcast art, and Ben Schlofelt for the audio production.
We come out with new episodes every Monday.